enjoyed by wrestling fans. Not sports entertainment fans. Professional wrestling fans! Professional wrestling! This is it! This is us standing up! This is
the Wrestling Matters Podcast, a podcast that stands up for professional wrestling. Why? Because wrestling matters. So join the revolution, because the revolution is now.
Well, enough is enough, and it's time for a change!
professional wrestling! This is it! This is us standing up!
Yes! 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 Yes!
That's 13-14!
Dina, I am the best in the world.
Cause that's the bottom line. Cause Stone Cold said so.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another installment, ladies and gentlemen, of the Progess Wrestling Podcast that I have brought to you by Wrestling Matters, of course. Now, we're going to review Chapter 7, like I said I was going to do, but there's been some changes to the podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks to one Steve Dawson, he has given me an idea to change the format. I have watched all the matches, and I'm going to give you my thoughts on the match, what my favourite moments were, and what the things that I enjoyed in the match, and how the wrestlers have grown, and the rating as well. So that's the 4 things right there. So I'm not going to do all that talk about there as well. If you enjoyed that, fair enough. But if you didn't, don't worry, I'll change it up. And like I say, I want to say a big thank you to Mr. Steve Dawson for giving me this idea. Because like I say, hey, I'm up to any feedback. Feedback is welcome on this show. Not just on this show, on the Wrestling Matters podcast, on the ICW show as well. Because I'll be doing the same thing for the ICW show as well, Steve. And you know, I want to revamp that as well. And I also do it for the Games Matter channel. Because feedback helps me become better at what I'm doing. Because like I've always said in life, there is room for improvement. And what it is, no matter what it is you do in life, if you do something and you're good at it, you can always get better. And I want to be better. I want to be the best that I can be at these podcasts. And the reason why I went from 1 to 3 a week is because I want to make things interesting. And I will admit, I was struggling a bit with the podcasts. I will admit that. But hopefully this new format, and like I say again, thank you Mr. Steve Dawson, hopefully this new format will help me and help me talk and get these podcasts out there to the best that they can be, and help me improve as a podcaster too. So without further ado, we'll kick off Chapter 7, and Noam Dar came out during for the start of the show and cut this promo saying that he didn't want to wait. Because he beat Dave Mastiff Chapter 5 to become the #1 contender for the Progess Wrestling title, which is a big stick thing that they have, like something out of a Golden Axe video game. It really is. And he came out and he didn't want to wait till later on in the evening for his match. He wanted it now, and it ended up being the first match on the card. And I enjoyed the match itself, because the match was quick pace. It was good. 2 X Division style wrestlers, again TNA, but 2 X Division style wrestlers going at it. El Ligero being the quicker pace of the two. He's definitely had the quickness advantage, because although Noam Dar's quicker, he's also very technical. And don't get me wrong, El Ligero is a technical wrestler, or can be a technical wrestler, but he's well known for his high flying ability. And he's damn good at it too. Great match from the start, like I say, fast to start off with. Great pace to the match too, as well. And there was times during the match that Noam Dar was trying to slow things down. Like I say, he's a very technical style. And every single time Noam Dar has a match, no matter what it is, or no matter who it's with, and like I say, it's not just on this chapter as well, it's on the previous chapters as well. He has worked on one body part. He picks that body part and he works on it, and that's the knee. Because when he sets that knee up, he works on the knee leg area, sets it up, and goes for that, as they called it on Progess Wrestling, Champagne Supernova, which is, for those of you that don't know, Champagne Supernova. It's a title track from an Oasis album, because his theme song is actually an Oasis track. Need a little time to wake up, that one. What's the Story, Morning Glory, there is. I know it'll come to me eventually. I'm a big Oasis fan. But yeah, he always seems to work. That's why he's so technical at what he does. He always seems to work on the leg area, and just to set it up for that knee bar. And once he locks it on you, he will snap that thing into the middle of next week if he has to. Ask Jimmy Havoc, because he made Jimmy Havoc tap out on the previous chapter as well. And yeah, I mean, these two had a great match. These two may have well just stole the show with this. Like I said, in my opinion, it's arguable points, because there was a lot of great matches on this card, but these two may have stole the show with this. My thoughts of the match, like I say, it was quick pace, great action, X Division style match itself. Very good start to the Progess Chapter 7. Because that's how you want to do. I mean, WWE might want to. You might want to show this to WWE, and they might want to take notes, and and show them how to, say, here, there you go. That's how you start a show, not with 20-minute boring pay-per-view, boring promos rather. You want to. I've always said you want to start a show that attracts the audience and makes you want to watch the rest of the show. Not a 20-minute promo. And if you're gonna have a promo at the start, make it short. Don't make it 20 minutes long, as they seem to do in WWE, right, Triple H? Anyway, like I said, it was a great start, fast-paced, great technical match, a lot of kicks thrown in there as well. I mean, these two could throw kicks, Ligero could throw kicks, and Ladar can throw his fair share of kicks. There was a lot of spots in the match where the Ligero was throwing kicks and everything, and it looked like they were hitting right on the money. Hard-hitting, quick-paced action too, because there was a lot of physical stuff as well in the match. And a couple of my favourite moments in that match were the tombstone into a lung blower, which is a tombstone, and then he turns it into like a lung blower. So instead of you taking the tombstone bump, your chest is going right into the legs of your opponent. Love that move by Ligero, I absolutely do. I think it's creative. Another moment of the match was a DVD on the apron by Ligero, which was fucking, it looked like it really knacked. And Da had a favourite moment in that match as well. One of my favourite moments in that match with Noam Dar was when he flipped off Ligero after taking the DDT. He took the springboard DDT, kicked out of one, and just flipped him off and said, "Fuck you, is that all you got? Is that all you got?" However, he received the DDT again, and Ligero won. Who was the person who's grew in this match? Don't get me wrong, Noam Dar's definitely grown since this. You wouldn't think he was 19 years old back then, man. No doubt, he was 19 years old back here. And he's definitely grown as a wrestler, and he's grown in shows as well. But like I say, he works more on the leg area. From what I've seen on the previous shows, as very technical, a very technical wrestler working on the knee bar area, and for that Champagne Super knee bar. Ligero has definitely grown from the two going into this show, because the reason why, the heel turn that he had on the show that he wrestled Burridge at, I think he was in a tag match with Greg Burridge, and he held his tights, and then Burridge after the match called him out on it and saying that he thought he was better than that. I don't know if that was a heel turn, because people still cheer for the guy on this, but that was the turn for him in a way of, I'm not just about the kids, I don't come out going Arriba, I can go, I can wrestle, I'm capable of carrying a company, I'm capable of being a champion, and I'm a great wrestler, I'm one of the best in the world, because he is, and dare I say maybe underrated too, but that's for another debate. He can go, he can take it to you, and he can, give you that match that you want to see, and show you great wrestling, as well as pandering to the kids and all that. He is a great wrestler, and he is. I enjoy watching the guy. I'd pay a lot of money to see him wrestle. I've got no problem seeing an El Ligero match. And he's definitely grew, because I think, considering the style that Progress Wrestling is, it's all about, strong style, strong wrestling style as well. Plus, it also caters to an over 18 crowd as well. That's just my opinion. It also caters to an over 18 crowd. So maybe this turn that he did to get to this spot right now, because he's now the Progress champion, because he beat Nathan Cruz. I believe he beat Nathan Cruz Chapter 4. To get to this spot now, maybe that turn was the best thing that could happen to him. The best thing that could happen to him, because, he's now the champion. He's now the champion of the show. And he's carrying Progress Wrestling from this chapter at least. Rating for the match, I would say 4 out of 5. Let me rephrase that. 4.5 out of 5. I thought it was really, 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 really good. The next match on this Progress Wrestling Chapter 7 show was a 4 corners match, 4-way match, whatever you want to call it, elimination match in the Natural Progression Tournament to take the last spot in the semi-finals. It saw Darrell Allen, Xander Cooper, Big Eddie Dennis, and Joey Lakeside. Joey Lakeside making his debut as one of Jimmy Havoc's students. Now, this was a normal 4-way match, if you ask me. The only thing I didn't like about it is the fact that it was a tag team. Like tag team rules in it. 2 men start, 2 men outside, both men tag in, like a 4 corners match, which is, I don't like the idea of that. If you're going to make a 4 corners match or a 4-way match, just put them all in the ring and turn them loose. Save the tag teams for the in and out tagging and that. Save that for a tag team match, man. If you're gonna make a 4-way match, then make a 4-way match. Just get him in the ring and just turn him loose. Make it elimination, makes it more interesting, because that means the person has to go through all 3 people to win the match. Now, like I say, it was just a standard, normal 4-way match, to be honest with you. Great wrestling involved, and just a standard 4-way match, really. Apart from the fact that it was a tag team, there was tag teams outside. My favourite parts of the match, or what I liked about the match, was Allen doing an awesome dropkick on Xander Cooper, double German suplex by Dennis on Allen and Cooper. That was great. And the highlight of the match for me was Lakeside. Now, Joey Lakeside is I was trained in the training school that they have in Progress Wrestling. He was the first graduate, and this was his debut match, and he did quite well. And he did very well for what he did. He was always shaking the hands and everything. He's a great wrestler, and from what I saw on this, he did very well, since the fact that he beat... he could hang with Xander Cooper for the 3 minutes before the tagging in and stuff. He did well to hang with an experienced Xander Cooper, because Xander Cooper was a champion at one point. But then he pulled off the shock the whole match, because he eliminated Xander Cooper, which was the last thing he expected. And then unfortunately he ended up pissing Dennis off, Big Eddie Dennis off, and Eddie hit him with God's Last Gift finishing move, which is his version, I'm sure, of a Pittsburgh plunge, and eliminates him. And then Eddie ended up winning it with God's Last Gift again by pinning Darrell Allen. As far as progression goes, who's progressed and who's grew, what of the wrestlers that have grown through, Joey Lakeside, there's nothing much I could say, because it was his debut and that, and I'm sure there's probably bigger things to come when I watch the rest of the shows, like from Chapter 8 onwards. I'm sure he'll get his opportunity. I'm sure I haven't seen the last of him. Eddie Dennis, I've only seen him once, and that was in a tag match with him and Mark Andrews, Team Defend, against the Bangor Knights. Speaking of the Bangor Knights, Darrell Allen has definitely come a long way since wrestling on the first show. He's got better and better, and he's probably made himself even more interesting now that he's reunited the Bangor Knights with him and RJ Singh. We'll talk about RJ Singh later. And Xander Cooper, from what I've seen, has grew, but the first time on the first show he was a champion, and now he's gone to this area now where he's not a champion, and it's going to be interesting to see what he's going to do. So in a way, from what I've seen, he hasn't grew, he's just went down a peg or two, because like I say, on the first show he was a champion. Now he's in tournaments and just wrestling single matches. Where's he going to go after that? All in all, a great match, natural 4-way match. Nothing really big or really much to say. It was just your natural 4-way match. It would have been better if it was all 4 of them in the ring and not playing tag team. But 4-way match, good match all around. And I forgot, one of my other favourite moments was when Xander Cooper got eliminated by Joey Lakeside, and Alan and Dennis were saying, nah, hey, fuck off. Which I thought was cool. But like I said, going back to what I was saying, all in all, great match all around, and I'll give it a 4. Wasn't really as much as the progression champion, the Progress title match at the beginning of it, but yeah, I liked it. I'll give it a 4. But like I said, there was really not much in it. It was just a standard 4-way match for me. Really not much excitement or anything like interesting in it. The only thing they needed to lose, the only critic out of that was they didn't need a tag team rule in it, but the tag in and out. I would have just put them all in and turned them loose. But like I said, all in all, a good match nonetheless. The next match on this Progress Wrestling card was between two teams. It was a tag team match. Project Ego making their debut in Progress Wrestling, and for those of you that don't know, Project Ego is Martin Kirby and Chris Travis against the dominant London Riots and undefeated London Riots too, I might add. Now, a good solid tag team match for me. I really liked it, although it was in a way kind of strange for me, because the previous shows that I've watched of Progress Wrestling, up until this show at least, the London Riots have been dominant. They weren't that dominant in this match. Now don't get me wrong, the previous shows, the tag teams have kept up with them, okay, but they've always been dominant. They've always shown their dominance and being the superior tag team to their opponents. In this one, they couldn't do that. They were relatively even, and all the credit in the world to Project Ego. They kept up with them really well and played a little bit of mind games along the way. Like I said, great solid tag team match, and a great way in a way to really test the London Riots, because like I say, I mean, even though they were dominant in most of their matches, but in this one they weren't as dominant as they were before. So relatively even tag team match. A few favourite points I'd like to make. Favourite points of the match were Ego playing mind games with them. Kirby and the Riots were pissed. They were playing mind games. I think at one point in the match, Kirby received a chop and started crying. And I use that term loosely, crying, and they're all thinking, and the Riots were like, what the fuck is this? Come on, kind of thing, really getting into their heads, which I thought was hilarious. At one point as well for Rob Lynch, Chris Travis brought out a Happy Meal and used that to get an advantage. Riots are so dominant. I mean, one of my favourite moves they do is the pop-up spear, and they did it in this match, where I think it's Davis who pops up the opponent, and then Rob Lynch spears him in mid-air. They did it to Martin Kirby, and boy oh boy, did Martin Kirby feel that. And then my other favourite moment as well was Kirby using Chris Travis, and I can't remember which one it was. I believe it was Rob Lynch, and suplexing James Davis off the top rope. He used him like as a platform to get James Davis and superplex him off the top rope, which was amazing. All in all, though, it was a good solid tag team match, and I can't really point out that much about Martin Kirby and Chris Travis, because like I said, it was their debut match. But as far as the London Riots, I mean, the London Riots were undefeated, so since their first match, which was at Chapter 2, they've definitely come and definitely progressed up until this point. And they ended up beating this sort of team that went 6-0 at Progress Wrestling, and they did it with their double powerbomb move. And then after the match, another favourite moment was after the match when Jim Smallman, the co-owner and ring announcer of Progress Wrestling, had enough of their bullshit, because every show that they've been on, they've always seemed to have had a problem with the Progress Wrestling fans, generated that kind of heat. They've always seemed to go in Jim Smallman's face, well, he couldn't take it anymore, and he basically told them to fuck off, give them their pay, told them to fuck off, and said that he'd have something for them at Chapter 8. What would that be? We'd have to find out, and I'll be reviewing that next week, next week. So all in all, like I say, good match, and I'll give that a 4 out of 5 because, like I said, it was a good solid tag team match for me. The next match was a good old fashion wrestling match, which we all know is something I like to talk about on these podcasts because wrestling matters. Now, it was a good old fashioned wrestling match involving one Jimmy Havoc, that's right, good old Jimmy, the Hardcore King, as he's now known, and Zack Sabre Jr. If I said that wrong, I apologise. It's Zack Sabre Jr. There you go. Got there in the end. My bad. And these two had a an excellent match. For the first 15 minutes, maybe 10 minutes of the match, it was all wrestling, hold for hold stuff, catch as catch can stuff, and that. And then they just shot dives on each other, which was unbelievable. One point of the match, there was 2 dives from Zack, and then Jimmy came back in the ring and hit a Hurricane Rana, and then Jimmy ended up diving on Zack. It was sort of that kind of style after the first 10 minutes at least. And these two went hold, like I say, they went hold for hold, move for move, and it was just great to watch. It really was. Whether it stole the show, well, I'll let you know at the end of the show, at the end of the podcast, or towards the end of the podcast, whether or not it stole the show, because there was also, the Mark Andrews match as well, Will Ospreay, which will be coming up in a after the quick time out. But it was really, really, really good for what it was. The special referee was in this match as well. The Progess Wrestling decided to bring in a special guest referee, which was Nigel McGuinness, and he just played his role very, very well. And at one point during the match, there was a monkey flip. It got to a point where Nigel got trapped in the corner, and there was a monkey flip that they did. I believe it was Jimmy who monkey flipped Zack, and while that was taking place, Nigel was on the second rope as that was taking place, and the monkey flip happened while Nigel was on the second rope. I thought that was really cool. And Zack won the match with probably the evilest armbars you'll ever see. But other than that, he made Jimmy tap and then shake hands at the end and everything. And Nigel even paid his respects to Jimmy as well, saying that he doesn't need hardcore wrestling, even though we all know now Jimmy is the hardcore king when it comes to Progess Wrestling. He doesn't need the hardcore style. Nigel said if you can hang with Zack Sabre Jr., you can hang with anybody, wrestling-wise, of course. All in all, a good, great technical match, and I'll give this match a 4.5. Zack has progressed very well up until this point because he's just had great matches. I mean, most of the chapters that he's been involved in he's been tag teams with Mighty Skull. The very first show of Progess Wrestling Chapter 1, he wrestled Mighty Skull in what people are calling probably one of the greatest matches in British wrestling. I'm not arguing that point. It is a debatable point, but if you go back and watch the match, you will understand why. And he's very much progressed up until Chapter 6, and he's very good on kicks too. He can throw some good kicks. As for Jimmy Havoc, who is the head trainer of the Progess Wrestling Training School, he hasn't won a match, although he's still over with the fans. People still... people love this guy, and it's hard not to. But as we all know, any of you Progess Wrestling fans out there, and you've seen Progess Wrestling, you all know he becomes very, very over indeed, and he progresses very, very, very big. I'll give you one example. Watch Chapter 17, and that promo he does at the beginning of it. Fuck me. Probably one of the creepiest, tense promos I've ever seen. And now I know why Steve Dawson always has rated him one of the best heels in wrestling. I didn't think at first because I never saw his heel work, but holy moly, just go and watch that promo and you'll understand why. But all in all, a good match. Like I say, 4.5 out of 5. Really, really good. A great, good, old-fashioned wrestling match. And that is key on this podcast because, as you well know, ladies and gentlemen, wrestling matters. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to cut it there. That is part 1 of this podcast done and dusted, and I will be back right after this quick timeout with part 2 and Will Ospreay and Mark Andrews. So stay tuned.
I see love! 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 I see love!
Be sure to tune in every single Tuesday now for the Wrestling Matters Podcast Extra, where I'll be hosting a podcast on one promotion and one promotion only. ICW, Insane Championship Wrestling, the hottest promotion in Scotland. Well, I'll be reviewing their shows.
Oh my God!
Talking ICW.
That's 13-14!
And who knows, maybe getting some guests on. So be sure to tune in to the Wrestling Matters Podcast Extra ICW podcast, Insane Championship Wrestling, every Tuesday on YouTube, Podomatic, Stitcher Radio, downloaded free at iTunes, Mixcloud, and SoundCloud. Wrestling Matters, wrestling fans.
World, look into my eyes. When you see me on a show, when you see these fans, You know you've got the best in the damn world. We are ICW and you're gonna know our name.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Progess Wrestling Chapter 7 podcast presented by Wrestling Matters. I hope you all well and hope you enjoyed the podcast so far. We kicked off the second half. Well, the second half kicked off, or, the fifth match on the card, I would say, kicked off with Will Ospreay versus Mark Andrews. Now, the stipulations in this match were, if Will beat Mark, he would get Mark's spot in the semi-final of the Natural Progression tournament. However, if Mark beat Will, Will would have to leave Progess Wrestling. Now, where do I begin with this match? Because this match was a 5-star classic, just like their match at Chapter 4. A 5-star classic. It stole the show, and they stole the show at Chapter 4. They stole the show at Chapter 6, at Chapter 7 rather. I mean, where do we begin? I mean, quick-paced wrestling at its best. And if you want to see good wrestling, go and watch the two matches they had. Whether it was a Chapter 4 or whether it was a Chapter 6 or 7. Sorry, go and watch them. Because I guarantee you will not be disappointed. Good wrestling at its best. It's just a shame that Will had to leave Progress, although we all know that he didn't leave for very much longer. If you watch Chapter 17, he's actually on Chapter 17. But yeah, great wrestling all around. 5-star match. Favourite points of the match were standing moonsault by Will and a standing corkscrew moonsault by Mark. And both men just wrestled. Quick-paced wrestling at its best. And Mark wins with a Spanish Fly, which is something that is used normally by Kaz and a Spanish tag team that were in TNA at one point as well, and various other cruiserweights have used it as well, and he used it to beat Will. One of my favourite moments of the match, and probably the favourite moment of the match, were two actually. Will doing a high jump flip over the top rope onto the outside, landing on Mark. A thing of beauty. Like I said, go and watch this match and just watch it for that moment alone. Progess Wrestling should have put that on their YouTube page, that moment itself, because it was fucking epic. And then the reverse Rana from the top, which is, he stands on the second, I think he stood on the second rope, and then he did a reverse Rana and flipped over, and he jumped back onto the shoulders of Mark, and it flipped him over for the reverse Rana. It was just epicness at its best. And like I say, a 5-star match. Mark is undefeated at this point, and he's come a long way since this whole thing started. He's progressed, full stop, progressed all the way through the chapters. As we all know, he progresses all the way up to a point where he ends up in TNA, because as we all know, he's in TNA now with thanks to the boot camp show and him winning TNA British Boot Camp, the second installment of TNA British Boot Camp 2, I might add. And Will, great tag team wrestler, he progressed as well. It's just a shame it had to come to an end at this point, at least, the way it did. But as we all know, he eventually comes back to Progress as well, so you'll be seeing a lot more. If you watch Chapter 6, don't expect not to see him again in the Progress ones, because he's on other shows as well. Chapter 17 being the example of that. But like I say, guys, all in all, 5-star match, 5-star rating. They stole the show again, just like they did at Chapter 4, and I highly recommend you go and watch this match. I'm going to watch both matches actually, because it's just superb. There was nothing half-paced about it. It was all full-paced, fast-paced, full in-your-face wrestling at its best. And you know what? I may very well just watch this match again, to be honest, because like I say, I can watch both matches again, and I know for a fact I wouldn't be disappointed with both of them. Probably both matches, I would have said Chapter 4 was the best, but to be honest with you, they're both equal in their own ways. And like I say, you could probably watch both matches again, and I guarantee you probably won't be disappointed. But congratulations to them both. They both stole the show at Chapter 7, just like they did at Chapter 4. And you wonder why Mark Andrews is in TNA. The next match after that was RJ Singh against Danny Garnell, rather. Dave Garnell, where did I get that from? These two, to be honest with you, I actually felt sorry for them, to be fair, because these two basically came out and had to have a match after the 5-star match before with Andrews and Will Ospreay. Now, Danny using his power for most of the match. It wasn't that much. It went at least 10 to 15 minutes, this match, maybe 12. Danny using his power for most of the match, even though for the first 10 minutes of it, first 5 to 10 minutes of it, there was some great wrestling in there. Both men feeling each other out, but all in all, just a good 15-minute 5-minute match basically to probably calm the Progress Wrestling crowd down a little bit considering what they saw before. Like I say, Garnell using his power for most of the match and nearly all of the match basically, suplexing him and just using what brought him to the dance really. One of my favourite moves, one of my favourite moments of the match was the leaping DDT off the second rope, which basically won Danny the match on RJ Singh, which was just great. RJ Singh didn't really do much in this match. He put on some great wrestling and used his quickness because Danny had the power advantage. RJ Singh definitely had the quickness advantage, and it was just nothing much really, just a good old fashioned 15-minute, I guess you could say it was a 15-minute break after the breathtaking match beforehand. And like I say, I feel sorry for both these two. I had to go out after that match. I'd have been a little bit down after that as well. And like I said, Danny hits the leaping DDT and gets the victory, and then RJ Singh came out as thinking he was Fandango basically. Singh Dango, I think his name was, and he corrected Jim Smallman. And then and after losing the match, he shakes hands with Danny and shows respect. And then as he was about to give one last dance, the London Riots came out and attacked him and took him out, basically, wedging his ankle in the chair and then hitting the chair with the ankle was wedged in with another steel chair, and it all went to pot from there. And then Darrell Allen and Danny came out to stop the match and stop the massacre and chase London Riots away. That's what they're good for, causing havoc. And RJ Singh had to be carried out with a hurt ankle. So all in all, a good match. Rating, I would have said 3 for this, but credit to them for trying to go out there and top, or go out there after the 5-star match at the beginning, because it's probably the most difficult out of them all to do, because hey, it was a 5-star match. But full credit to them for the time they had, which was 15 minutes. They put on a good show, and they made the most of it, and they did very well to keep the Progress Wrestling crowd interested in their match, because like I said, I'm pretty sure there was still hype from the previous match. But all in all, credit to them. RJ Singh has definitely come a long way. Danny's had some good matches on the chapters, but on the Progress Wrestling show, but I mean he's had good matches and he's done very well for himself. But RJ Singh's probably progressed the most out of these two, because when this thing first started, he was a heel and he had an entourage, and then he had the open challenge at the chapter with Darrell Allen rather, and then they had their match and everything, and then they formed the Bangor Knights, and he turned babyface and joined up with Darrell Allen to reform the Bangor Knights. So he's definitely come a long way, and I'm sure there's big things for Mr. Singh, as if you guys watch Progress Wrestling, you all already know there is big things for Mr. Singh down the road. All in all, 3 out of 5 for that. Good match for the time they had. And then it came down to the 6-man tag main event, which saw Screw Indie Wrestling, Nathan Cruz and Mark Huskins versus Marty Skull, Paul Robertson and Rampage Brown. Now, before the match, Smallman kicks out the bodyguard out of the ringside, which was Nathan Cruz' bodyguard, considering what he did the last time he wrestled, Cruz wrestled rather, and then him getting involved in everything and what he did. And considering what he did to Jimmy Havoc, choke slamming him and everything on the last show, so Smallman told him to fuck off basically and kicked him out. And then Cruz gets on the mic and starts rambling on, and then he comes out and says he's going to introduce the member of Screw Indie Wrestling, the mystery partner, and I think he said newest member of the Screw Indie Wrestling, and then Marty and Paul Robinson looked at the airway. Lo and behold, that the guy who was coming out to ringside was already in the ring, because it was Rampage Brown who joined. So then it became Rampage Brown, Mark Haskins and Nathan Cruz against Marty Skull and Paul Robinson. And just as Rampage was about to powerbomb Paul Robinson in the crowd, Dave Mastiff came out and the music hit, and he came in and cleaned house, allowing him to join Marty and Paul Robinson. Now, the stipulation for this match was whoever got the pinfall got the title shot against El Ligero, the Progress Wrestling champion, at Chapter 8. So a lot of things went down. Rampage is heel turn, and then all in all, it was a great tag team match. A 6-man tag team match with involving Rampage, and I mean, my favourite part of the match was Rampage and Dave Mastiff when they went at it. Them two big bastards, Jesus Christ. Dave Mastiff, a 300-pounder in his own right, and Rampage Brown, fuck me, he's a monster in his own right as well. He's very intimidating. Look, I've seen Rampage close up, and I've watched him wrestle as well. He was at an EPW show. He goes to many EPW shows, and he's just a monster in his own right, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens with him in El Ligero Chapter 8, and I'm looking forward to seeing that. And like I said, for after about 5 to 10 minutes of the match, it was all screw-indie wrestling with their great tag team wrestling and six-man tag cohesiveness, and they're together as a unit, as a group came into play, and then it was all down. It was all from then, and then probably my favourite moment of the match, which really impressed me, and this is the reason why Rampage Brown is a monster, because to win the match and become the number 1 contender to the Progess Wrestling title, and he will meet El Ligero Chapter 8, and to meet El Ligero Chapter 8, he pile-drived Dave Mastiff. Now, not saying that he's weak, because like I said, Rampage is a fucking monster, but to do that to a 300-pound guy is impressive. And like I say, he got the victory. That all coming from Marty's mistake, because Dave had Mark Haskins pinned after the cannonball and the German suplex in the corner, and then Marty stopped the count. Now, if Marty had stopped the count, Mastiff would have been number 1 contender, but they would have won it for the team. But Marty wanted to be number 1 contender, and it was that mistake that basically cost Mastiff the number 1 contendership to the Progess Wrestling title, which allowed Brown to power drive Mastiff to get the victory. All in all, a 4 out of 5 for me. Great 6-man tag, good main event, and a good way to end the show. Marty's come a long way since he's progressed very well since number 1 with his epic match with Zack Sabre Jr. at the first chapter, and I'm sure he's just going to progress even more from there. When I watch the other shows, Paul Robinson he's done very well as well, progressed very well. He's in the Natural Progression Tournament semi-final, and be interested to see how that turns out. And you may have seen Paul Robinson on ICW as well. He's made a few appearances on ICW as well, so he's definitely one to look at. Nathan Cruz for me has progressed downwards, because he was the very first champion, and now he's gotten to this group. He's still on that level, but you're on the champion and you go down. And where do you go from there? But he's obviously got into this screw-indie wrestling group, so he hasn't done that badly. But I'm sure there'll be big things when I watch the other chapters as well. Big things for me to look forward to as well. Mark Haskins was his debut, and when somebody makes their debut, you don't really have that much to say, except for when I talked about Joey Lakeside earlier on. But there wasn't really that much, and I could swear at one point during the match, I really thought Adrian Neville was in the ring. I really did, because he looked like Adrian Neville to me. But like I said, not really much to say, but if you want to know the progression of it, come back in about a couple of shows and I'll hopefully have something for you then. And this was only Rampage's second match, and what a way to get a number 1 contender in your second match in Progess Wrestling, because the first match he lost to Nathan Cruz, which I believe was at Chapter 5 if I remember correctly. All in all, like I say, good match, good 6-man tag, good main event, good way to end the show, and I'll give that a 4 out of 5 for me. And a very good way to end this podcast too. Big thank you to everyone who's took the time to listen to this podcast. Thank you so much for listening. My name is Anthony Walker, the HD at the A to D, bringing you this podcast. Big thank you to Steve Dawson for the idea as well. Hopefully this all worked for you, and hopefully you liked it, and hopefully you enjoy it. And I've done this not just on this podcast as well, but be sure to check out the Mary Hill Show ICW podcast review that I did yesterday. It is out now. You can check it out on SoundCloud at SoundCloud.com/SoundCloud.com/wrestling_podcast wrestling_matters_podcast. Sorry, there's a lot to say in this. I mean, Jesus Christ. I'm going to try and change the URL if it'll let me, but I doubt it. But if it doesn't, well, it is what it is. But if I can change the URL on that, I will. For more information on TWT Wrestling, go to facebook.com/TWT Wrestling, at the official TWT on Twitter, and check out EPW Wrestling while you're at it as well. For more information on that, go to epwwrestling.co.uk, facebook.com/EPW American Wrestling, and EPW Wrestling 1 on Twitter. Despite the fact that the boss can't use a Twitter account. He might have improved. I don't know. I haven't been back in a while. But hey, all in all, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening. Hope you've enjoyed these podcasts. Tune in next Monday for the Wrestling Matters podcast, of course, and a new change to the Ring of Honor segment on that show. Big thank you to Steve Dawson for the idea, and shout out to OSW TV, the affiliates of the Wrestling Matters podcast as well. oswtv.co.uk for more information. And until next time, I'm Anthony Walker. Peace out.
Well, enough is enough! and it's time for a change! Professional wrestling! This is it! This is us standing up!
Yes, 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 yes!
That's 13-14! Make it till death!
Cena, I am the best in the world.
Cause that's the bottom line. Cause Stone Cold